Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order, and we're on 6.3 to the best of my knowledge, operations and financial information services.
Yes, so I'm here on behalf of,
I say, you don't look like the right person.
no, I don't.
Well, then you tell me what this ARCGIS ESRI upgrade means.
Maybe that's that.
Because I sure have.
Well, so, let's start at the beginning, then we'll get to that. Council approved the addition to the current 2022-2023 budget of $18,000 plus HST for the purchase of the ESRI, which stands for Environmental Systems Research Institute, and that's the software developer, that's the company. Workforce Starter Solution add-on app, and this is unbudgeted expenditure funded by the General Reserve. The Infrastructure Department is leading the development of the municipalities' interdepartmental cross-functional asset management system, which, when complete, will rely heavily on an enhanced ArcGIS system. Now, ArcGIS system is the software used. So GIS is the Geographic Information System. So essentially, it's a program that we already have the basics of in situ, which we do use, that captures, stores, checks, and displays information about the assets that we currently own and manage.
Yeah.
So the I'm just reflecting.
What's this new thing?
Okay, so we currently have the basic as a GIS software, as I mentioned. This new add-on will enable us to separate out each of the categories within infrastructure and operations, or particularly at this stage, public works. So we are proposing that the first four will be categories will be roads, wastewater, vehicles and equipment, and buildings and structures. So this software will allow us to gather all of the roads information. So we're talking about J-class roads and not the municipal roads. We'll be able to look at the asset condition ratings when they're last inspected, all of the different components, the maintenance side of it, the capital budget forecast that will be used to have those discussions at the opportune time. What it also gives us is the ability for the field staff. So when they're on site, on their phone, they'll be able to flag up the information with the assets right in front of them. So they're looking at a manhole and they want to go, okay, when was this, what condition it's in, what are the dimensions, what are the specifications?
Add that to the information.
It's all there in the hand. And if there are any changes made on site, as per their site visit, they can upload that information immediately, and it uploads it directly into the system that's managed by our colleagues in IT. So it's a very, it's been around 20-25 years. It's not new technology. It's industry standard. It's very reliable. It's very useful when it comes to asset management, which I mentioned earlier, and which will be bringing to council in the very near future and progress with that. So we are asking that with it being unbudgeted, that you approve the purchase of the software to allow us to move forward with the asset management.
Where's the money coming from?
General Reserve.
It's almost as good as hiring another person, is it?
Sorry, yeah.
It's almost as good as hiring another staff person.
It's better than that. Better.
What does Dan recommend?
That's a problem.
What does he recommend?
RCAO.
Oh, yeah, so I support the recommendation, which is to purchase. And that it be funded from general reserve.
So moved.
Seconder?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Helps when you don't really know what you're doing.
Well, thanks.
No,
Oh, I know.
No,
And very prompt.
I know.
No, it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Save time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think we need to have this as part of a more sophisticated asset management program and future federal funding is gonna be tied
All
to the
tied.
strength of your asset management program, so if we don't do this, then it's only gonna cost us more later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have said that before we go, but.
Well, it was already going that way. didn't it?
Yeah.
We didn't
Here are.
need to.
But that's one of the main reasons we're doing it, so we have access to the funding.
And it better enable you to make really informed decisions.
Yeah.
About investments in your infrastructure.
But yeah, but it is part of the federal funding program that you have to do this asset management stuff. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I think you're probably here for the gazebo parade lighting.
Yes, so you're sick of the sight of me. Okay, so we are asking council to provide direction to address the citizen complaint regarding the parade square gazebo lighting with respect to both the short-term and long-term approach to the lighting. So the current schedule, which has been in operation for a couple of years now, is 5 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the morning, and then it's 5 o'clock in the evening to 11 o'clock at night. I don't know who decided on that schedule. It was something that happened, and it was one of those things. So I can't give any history as to why those times are selected. The distances from the 4 nearest residences are as listed. The citizen is the second placed in the league table there, 50 meters away. We did do a lux meter measurement, so that's a light reading, just at the intensity of the light. So we went out during the dark when the lights were on to see what it was, and based on again industry standards. So it's the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America, which is a sort of go-to guidelines and recommendations. They say that we are looking at 54 lux level or lumen levels for a structure of the gazebos category, and we're about twice that. So it does go above and beyond the recommendation to the level of lighting. Currently, the bulbs that are in there cannot go at the lowest dimmable level. So even at, it's not going to get it. We can't turn them back. Yeah, it's not a, we can't just turn the dial. One of the issues that the citizen raised about the, what's the word, the sort of random nature of the lights coming on was that they do get affected by power outages, which we suffered quite recently. And so that knocks out the digital system. So we are sort of, so that's the potted history of where we are at the moment. In terms of the discussion, I mentioned the IESNA, the lightings, the guidelines folk, and they're suggesting that general principles include the identification of where and when lighting is required, directing light downwards, limiting light across property lines, utilising shut-off controls, and using the correct level of light for the intended purpose. The gazebo is occasionally booked during evenings and lighting is required. The existing lighting is directed downwards. However, whilst it's on the digital timer, the lighting does not have a shut-off control or motion sensors, which may help in that sort of ambient light that has been complained about. So there are three, so the short-term sort of fixes, which we can do pretty much straight away, are that we can either continue as it is and do nothing, and you know, there we are, which is an option. Reduce the scheduled lighting, daily lighting schedule, so perhaps we don't have it on in the mornings, even though the mornings are dark, as we all know. But of an evening, run it until 9 p.m, for example, or 8 p.m, whatever. Or we just turn them off and only turn them on when somebody's booked it for a specific event. So there are things we can do sort of straight away. That's a fairly simple fix. In terms of long term, again, we can just light the area based on events that are booked. We can replace the existing lighting and associated system with equipment that does not exceed the recommended illumination levels, can be activated by motion sensors, can be operated remotely, so that we can, so that we can immediately change the levels if there are any requests or any complaints. And finally, just create a gazebo lighting policy, or a policy that that covers similar structures, so that the rules and regulations for this type of thing. We know what we're doing. So the options that we're presenting are option one, and you can have one, some, or none of these. Option one, direct the staff to continue with the current lighting schedule. Option B, direct staff to reduce the scheduled lighting hours. Option C, turn off on the lights only during scheduled events. And the long term is to direct staff to investigate lighting options that follow the recommended IESNA guidelines.
What do they want us to do, Jerry?
What was, sorry, repeat that.
What do you want us to do?
Oh, what do I want to do?
It's, I don't believe we need to go too deep and heavy into this.
Well,
Want the lights on or you want them off?
well, part, have you seen Nancy Murray's letter that goes sort of part and parcel with this? She knows that we're looking at some bigger policy, she says, and I think you have this letter. In the meantime, would council be prepared to consider a slight modification now? The lights not to come on until 7. I don't understand why the lights are on in the morning anyway. I don't see the point of that. And turn them off at 8 p.m.
It's easy.
Not a big ask. The report actually, I have to say I'm quite impressed with the report, the performance of the report, and the timeliness of the report. I think it's all positive, and I think when we see the lights are currently set at their lowest dimmable level, and they're twice the what they should be, we really have to do something. I had a couple of questions just before I get into the recommendation. Is when you talk about replacing with a new system, any sense of the cost of that?
No, we would come back and with those details upon your instructions.
It's Andre, you ready to do something on that particular topic?
Well, I'm just gonna have a few comments, so the easy thing would be just turn off the lights, of course.
8 o'clock or whatever.
Yeah, but, we have a number of public buildings, and it would be nice if we tried to be thoughtful so that we can come up with something consistent, because it's not, you don't have to reach too far into your brain to imagine that this scenario could come up again. Interestingly, of course, there's another public building right in the south. If you look at the photo that says South Street, front of residence, you can see in the distance, you can see the Lido building, which is fully illuminated all the time. Interestingly. So, and a number of streetlights that are also illuminated all the time. So I think even when streetlights are introduced into a community, we often have positive and negative comments, depending on what people value. I, for one, actually like seeing our public buildings illuminated in some fashion for security, and actually, it's nice that when you're walking, you can at dark, you can see public investment. I personally like that. There might be things we could do without actually changing with the lights. For example, they could be rewired and have 2 switches so that you had
Half
of them on. In theory, you would have half the lumens, I think.
Okay.
So
Take out the bulbs.
So you could do something like that, and maybe it wouldn't be a full replacement of all the hardware, and then you have events, then you could turn them all off, for example. Just throwing it out there as maybe a third option, but I like having some illumination in our public structures personally. Like from a policy perspective, I don't know this particular resident as well as Derek probably does. But maybe there's some sort of compromise that would allow us to still illuminate our public buildings and then give this person maybe some sort of, like, at least put it within the guidelines. And presumably, if you had half the lights, then it would drop down to a manageable level.
How many bulbs are in there? Like, I don't know. I didn't pay. attention.
There are six, one in each of the sort of triangular sort of panels in the ceiling.
Well, we reduced it to half, turned them off at 8 o'clock. This should,
They gave us short-term options and long-term options.
yes.
I'm gonna recommend it in short term, we reduce the schedule, daily lighting schedule. Definitely shut them off at 8. I don't know. I'm just throwing this up. I'm wondering, is there a need to have them on in the morning? Does anyone have any sense of how much it's costing us to light the gazebo? Does any sense of that?
I don't know, I couldn't tell you.
It wouldn't be a lot.
They're
LED bulbs.
They're LEDs, so it's as low as the cost would be.
But I think we need to reduce the schedule. We don't want to long late at night when people could be sleeping. That's.
It is a public spot.
Yes.
And what would happen if someone was down there and we don't supply lighting in the church? That'd be a concern. Is it gonna limit the use? And what would happen if half the community come in now and say, we want lights down there, you know? I think we have to supply, I think there's an answer that we make it dimmer, but make it at least usable to the general public.
There's some streetlights down
I'm not in the gazebo, there's not. I see the pictures here.
there. There's
When I look at it,
There's a street light on South.
yeah, I see the,
South Street.
anyway,
So
I think either do it all or none, because people will expect lights that we have in there and get them down to a dimmer.
I'm recommending we reduce it, not eliminate it.
Reduce the light and the time of day.
Yes, and then secondly, on long term, I think some of the suggestions Andre came up with, if they're feasible, and that's where we go to the long term recommendations that, let's not just sort of
Yeah.
make a half-assed decision. Let's look at those options. Create a lighting policy that includes can we replace them? Can we in fact just use 3 bulbs instead of 6?
Mhm.
I think the recommendations are sound.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I have no issue whatsoever with turning them off a little earlier in the night. Now we're doing it, what, 9?
Well, it's 11.
11,
Yeah.
well, I mean, so if you turn them off at 8, then whatever, they're still on. And if you take 3 bulbs out,
It should
yeah,
Well, I mean, they look at have to look and see what that would do.
Mhm.
In fact,
well, you could try it.
We could try it. I'll have to get an electrician in to split the circuit so that.
Just take 3 bulbs.
Just take 3 bulbs.
Well, the sealed units.
No, we don't want to keep them, so.
No, we just
Just rewire them.
for
You-
trial.
Manny's right.
Okay, well, I didn't go with that.
Well, the reason why the sealed units is because of the weather.
You don't want
Also,
anybody getting around doing
and people vandalizing steel in the bulbs. So they're
They probably aren't even bulbs. Like,
Okay, well, we have to
Yeah,
separate it, because on
They're
a night when there's a band concert, want them all.
yeah, precisely.
I think
There's a legal opinion.
No, the legal shades, is it possible to have a cover?
So we
That would just reduce the illumination down to say the recommended level without having to do anything.
So we looked at the cowls, which would be more directional lighting. Again, with what's in there now, there's nothing without making a bit of a ham-fisted go of it and gluing and screwing things on. There's nothing there. We could, sorry.
So can we just then reduce the illumination until we can have an electrician come in and deal with it? And in the meantime, from a policy perspective, we can just try to maybe build up a policy around this standard. So at least then we're referencing a real standard in the real world and just try to bring all of our public buildings in compliance with that eventually.
Yeah,
but
yeah, fine, but I don't want to add another.
I think we're just overcomplicating this.
Me too.
Why not just turn the lights off at 8 or 9 and not have it lit at night? There's still street lighting there.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the
'Cause I mean,
chance?
I have people in my district, some who want more lights, some who want me to not have it all. And if, I don't want to get into a business where I'm dealing with this illumination effect for every street light in the district of Chester. I mean, they're there for a reason, safety.
Would it work to shut them off at 8 and then not to turn them on in the morning? Simple.
I think that would be a good short-term solution.
I mean, sure, if we build a new building or do something new, we should try to conform with the illumination stuff. I don't have any issue with that.
But I don't think it's a big deal to look at whether shades would work and things of that nature.
I don't want to add this is massive.
That was like what you turn on the
Jeez. Well, yeah.
You just kind of switch down there, the public can go down, turn them on.
Well, they go down and flick them on and off, no. Try something.
Short term, one of these.
Turn them off at 8 o'clock.
Turn them off at 8, and is there a reason to have them on in the morning, 7 o'clock?
I don't see much sense in that. I mean, it's, people they're walking around in the evening, they're not much out there since 7 o'clock in the morning, and there are streetlights.
Look,
So let's just do that.
I know people that go out jogging at 6 in the morning, but that's their choice and they're doing it in the dark, so.
Well, the street light down there, it's not just about the only lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, if there were no streetlights, that'd be,
Well, they'll have plenty of light from the illegal, but it'll be fine.
It'll
yeah,
be fine.
yeah. See what the village commission does with that.
But I think we need to look, and I don't want to put it on the work agenda then, because ahead of some other things, but there's nothing wrong with some type of lighting policy there.
No, I just don't want to make it a list where
No, I
people are wondering, why isn't that done yet, you know? and,
Yeah.
Well, that's because we were doing these other things you wanted done right away.
We've had direction to look at a policy for
The village,
outdoor lighting, we could potentially roll something into.
well, that's in the village because yeah, that came out of all that planning.
Not just the village, I think Sharon had the same concerns about lighting in certain areas in their riding that, you know.
So I think, if council agrees, you'll give us direction on the short term.
Yeah.
The reasons why we had identified the discussion, some of the guidance, because it's probably good guidance. So
Yeah,
I understand that it's about being good neighbors.
Agreed.
I think it's my personal view that the resident should want the municipality as a neighbor. So I think there is good guidance there, and I heard the warden say that for future projects, we would look at applying some of this guidance, so that's why we included that in the discussion section. If you endorsed that, that would be helpful for us going forward. For example, if there is a renovation soon, in the parade square, we would probably bring forward some estimated costs to change lighting that would be aligned with that policy.
Yeah.
If it's not, so if you're supportive of that, you just need to tell me how urgent that is, the longer term. If it's not urgent, then we would bring it forward when we have a project there.
I don't have a problem with that. I was just trying to not, because if we just say to you today, develop a lighting policy, then it's going to apply to the entire municipality of Chester. Public is going to get involved. They're going to say, well, I want the street lights turned off at that time of day too, and I want this and I want that.
It's the streetlights and the bigger piece for structures.
Well, that's
I think
the second.
when we roll it in, because we did talk about illumination during, roll it into that particular project.
Sure. And if we do anything new, of course, try to follow that policy.
If we deal with the short-term issue right now, I think we confuse it and become good neighbors.
Yeah.
And I think, but I don't think that's necessarily gonna be the end of it. Let's roll it into the others. As Tara suggested, I think that we can move forward and we can explain to the neighbors, this is what we've done.
Yeah,
We're
no, I
not,
don't have any issue with that. I remember us taking a couple of lights, outdoor lights down out here because the neighbors have complained.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's short and long term, I think is a good solution.
there's limits because some of the security issues or safety issues and things like that. So do that.
So
We want to reduce till 8 o'clock.
8 PM, not on in the morning.
Right.
And
Try to apply that policy
for our facilities,
Yeah,
And it doesn't-
not our
It
streetlights.
doesn't apply to special events.
yeah, and the special events.
And then we'll look at opportunities
As they-
to upgrade our lighting system when they arise.
Yeah.
And we would probably apply some of those principles, like I heard reference to motion sensors. That's obviously a technique that we could use as well. So we'll apply some of those principles there. So I think that's,
That's the motion we want. Somebody make it,
So moved.
seconder? Where's-
Second,
Say where's Dell?
he lost his connection.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you, Manny. Thank you, council.
Snow and ice control? Oh, you're not gonna stick around for that one, man?
Well, I thought I'd give you all a break.
It'll make me talk about snow, you know.
I don't even wanna hear about the snow.
Well, the previous contracts for snow removal for sidewalks and roads, they expired 2 years ago. But with COVID and everything, it was extended for a year, extended for another year. So this year we put them back out to public tender.
Yeah.
And we only had one bid for each area, and that's from the people that did them before. So the experience is there.
You don't have much choice now, do you?
No, not a lot, but
Move that will direct the award to the contracts as detailed above in the report that you're about to give.
that's right. The information's
We have
there.
a seconder for that. Discussion.
now, have you addressed any shortcomings or whatever with the contractors that bid on this that they may have had in the past with their
I've
service?
heard a couple complaints from some, very good reviews on many of them.
Yeah.
And that's just something, as I get to learn to work with these contractors, I would keep an eye on it and just hold them to the specs.
Yeah, that's,
They did a little better job last year than they did the year before. They were rough as all get out.
Okay, yeah. And we're gonna have, our staff go with them before everything starts up with videoing each section, discussing past problems and what we can do to work together in the future.
Try not to knock down the ornamental streetlights and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Okay. Hard to believe, but I think I'm on to in camera.
Yeah, you're back.
Well,
Go on camera.
second.
discussion.